So I'm sure most everybody knows that the IRS just hired 87,000 new agents, and apparently these agents will be armed. They have to carry firearms. According to the job description that they posted, they have to be willing to shoot people. And they also, the IRS just bought, I don't know, don't quote me, but a bunch of ammo. Again. So you have to ask yourself, why are they hiring agents? Now, of course, they're going to say they're going to go after the rich people, but that's not the case. As a matter of fact, when they tried to write the bill, people wanted to make sure that the middle class would be protected from these 87,000 new agents, and they didn't put it in the bill. That tells me that they're going to go after the middle class and the poor. And I think a lot of people agree with this. I want you to understand what this means. Your favorite neighbor, the plumber, he's got a small business where he goes over and fixes people's plumbing. That's who they're going to go after. And it makes a lot of sense, because the problem is he's a business owner. And he's low-hanging fruit is what he is. If you go after a corporation and you send your army of IRS agents after him, they're going to have an army of lawyers to fight off the army of IRS agents. But Bob, your next door neighbor, the plumber, he can't even afford a lawyer. You know, he makes enough to feed his family, maybe get some tools, a new truck every now and then so he can run his business. But he can't really go out and get a big time lawyer or an accountant. That's another thing corporations have, is accountants. So, I mean, he does TurboTax and he pays his taxes, never misses a payment. Now, when you're self-employed, like me, what you have to do is you have to pay quarterly payments for next year. So they predict how much you're going to make. They break that into quarterlies. Well, last year I had to pay almost, what was it? A quarter? Maybe it was a quarter, just over a quarter of my paycheck in taxes. So that's not so bad. I mean, a quarter, you know, 25%, okay. But the thing is last year we were just coming out of the pandemic, and my YouTube channel was doing very well. So I was able to put a lot into savings. And people are going to say that, you know, you got to pay what you got to pay and all that. But here's the thing, is this year my channel dropped significantly. Got done building a tiny house. That was the problem, is when I was building the tiny house, my views dropped a lot. So did my subscribers. A lot of people unsubscribed once I started building a tiny house. I'm making now a third of what I was making last year. So I had to pay this year's taxes quarterly based on last year's assessment of what I made. Well, last year I made 2/3 more than what I'm making this year. That means over a third of my paycheck is going to taxes this year. I'm really dipping into savings quite a bit. Every third month, I don't make any money. It literally goes into my bank account. I write the check to the IRS, and that's all the money there was. So that means I have to take all the money out of the savings to pay for my, you know, groceries and insurance and, you know, whatever. It's not like I have a lot of bills. I am debt free. I don't owe anything. So it just really is insurance, cell phones. It's really been frustrating that I'm taking out of savings. That being said, people are going to say, well, it's no big deal. You got to pay your taxes. But the thing you have to understand when you're self-employed is you have to pay Social Security. Now, when you work for an employer, you pay Social Security, I think it's 7.5%. And the employer pays the other 7.5%. And then the employer gets to write that off on his taxes. So basically that other 7.5% is free. It's free money. No one is really paying it except the government. But when you're self-employed, you have to pay all of the 15%, the 7.5% that you pay, the 7.5% that the employer pays, but there's no tax write-off on it. So your small business guy, Bob, next door, me, pays the full 15%. Well, if you can look into it in a positive light, you're just like, well, that's still not too bad because Social Security will be there and it's like a savings account for me. The problem is I'm not too certain Social Security will be there for me. I think I can collect it at 62 or 63, so I still got 10, 11, 12 years left before I can collect it. It's in bad shape, Social Security is. The inflation rate on it this year is going to be pretty high. It's quite apparent that it could be that I am just paying a 15% tax, which means I'm paying about, I guess, what, 35% just in taxes. And I'm dirt poor. And I'm below the poverty level with my income. So really my biggest bill is just taxes. Now, here's the thing. These 87,000 IRS agents that have been brought up at the beginning of this video, they have nothing to do. Absolutely nothing to do. Now, people are going to say, well, if you didn't cheat on your taxes, you wouldn't have anything to worry about. Well, I did the best I can. Like I said, TurboTax. I did TurboTax. But the thing is with me, is I don't know what I can write off. There's no clear-cut thing for me. You know, this camera, I can clearly say is a business expense. So I can write that off. That's no big deal. But the chickens, let's talk about the chickens. These are the questions I have to ask myself. Would I have chickens if I wasn't on YouTube? And there's no clear-cut answer. If I wasn't on YouTube showing you how to raise chickens, I might be doing something else. Maybe I just go and get a job at Walmart. So there's no clear-cut answer. So is chickens my personal use or is it my business use? So that means, is the chicken feed business or personal? Well, I think most people would agree that it's business because my chickens are part of the YouTube channel. So you would think that it's reasonable to say that if my chickens show up on camera and I talk about them and teach about them, then that's a business expense. But I don't know. So did I write everything off correctly? Again, I don't know. So what they're going to do, and they've already said this is what they're going to do, is they're going to send you a notice saying that you did not pay your taxes correctly. And they'll send you out a notice that says you owe $10,000 based on our assessment in a mail, in a letter. And they're going to say, please pay the $10,000 by this date. Well, you're like, oh no, what am I going to do? I don't have $10,000. So you call the IRS agent and say, look, I don't have that kind of money. Well, we're just going to have to send out an auditor then if you're going to dispute this. So you'll have to hire a lawyer when the auditor gets there. You'll have to hire an accountant when the auditor gets there. That way they can all talk about your taxes in an educated way. And you're like, oh man, I can't afford a lawyer and an accountant either. That's just, how am I going to do all this? So the IRS agent is going to say, well, I'll tell you what, just send us a check for $1,000 and we'll forget the whole thing. And you're like, okay, I'll send you a check. So you send a check for $1,000 that you may not have owed. You just can't afford to fight it. So one way or another, they're going to get their money. Either they're going to come out and they're going to say, hey, you owe $1,000 because you wrote off the wrong thing, and plus all the lawyer fees and accountant fees, or you're just going to send out the $1,000. They're going to play the scare tactic. They already said that's what they're going to do. The government is behind significantly in money. As you know, we're trillions of dollars in debt. Now, I know I get a lot of commenters are telling me, oh, it's all printed money. That's how it works. You don't have to worry about a thing. And then there'll be others say, oh, you don't even have to pay taxes. It's voluntary. Well, it's voluntary until they send you to jail. Been a lot of famous people going to jail for not paying taxes. Just fill out a form. Well, if that form is so popular, then why are you not telling me, hey, I fill out this form and I don't have to pay taxes? I never hear that. Now, how does this apply to you? If you're not self-employed, how is this going to apply to you? Well, I'd still be concerned. If you're doing taxes on TurboTax, they're going to come get you. TurboTax will guarantee your paper. So think about this. If you've paid the insurance for TurboTax and they got that guarantee that it's going to be accurate, they'll just collect the TurboTax money. So you'd be well advised to make sure when you do your TurboTax that you get that insurance. So this is a scam. That's one of the things I get so frustrated about with the IRS is, you know, we talk about having some sort of sales tax or flat tax. where we just say, hey, taxes are 10% for everybody across the board. The problem with doing that is TurboTax wouldn't be in business. Or H&R Block, they wouldn't be in business. So they're not going to just ban the income tax, because it's a billion, I'm sure, billions and billions of dollars of industry that would go under if they just got rid of the income tax. Well, so H&R Block, it's in their best interest to pay off politicians and lobbyists to keep the IRS there. So expect this 87,000 IRS agents to be an absolute nightmare. As soon as they announced it, I knew that we were in trouble. There's no way around it. All the small business owners are going to get nailed. That means all the little YouTubers out there who's got, 50 or 60,000 subscribers, they're going to go after them first. They're not going to go after the big YouTubers like PewDiePie or, I don't even know if you've heard of these guys, but there are some big ones. I think PewDiePie's got 111 million subscribers. They're not going to go after him because he's got an army of lawyers and accountants already. He has to. They're going to go after the little guys, all the little YouTubers, all the plumbers, the electricians, the contractors, mom and pop restaurants. My suspicions are a lot of places will have to close up shop. It's just not profitable anymore to be a small business owner. I've been a small business owner most of my life. I ran a consulting company from 2001 to 2011. And then in 2016, I started that consulting business back up. And then just recently, I gave up the consulting business and just living off YouTube money, because we don't need a lot of money. And I'm quite satisfied with the amount of money that we make on it. But it's getting to the point now that the only thing the IRS wants you to do is work for an employer. There really is no way to go into business for yourself and expect to make it with the IRS being your largest bill. My largest bill takes an entire paycheck every 3 months. A third of my check goes to the IRS. I don't have a house payment, I don't have a land payment, I don't have anything except cell phones, insurance, and IRS. They're coming after us, so expect it. I'm sure the commenters are going to be out there just in full force. Don't do it, don't do it. It's either that or jail. They're not going to let you off the hook. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to another video where I talked about the government taking our money. I hope I can inspire you to play it smart so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.